Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Mr Speaker.
Fletcher Tabato.
Thank you, sir. As a new member of this term, I can't believe the audacity of this government and its members. I just don't know what's left for this government to do to meaningfully address our growing trade deficit, for example. A government who stands in front of the people of this country and tells us how important growing our export businesses are, but then they won't stand up in front of the people of this country and tell them that real export figures are going backwards. I just don't know what's left for this government to do that is meaningful to address the government's own growing debt, sir. Sir, it's spiralling out of control. The government tells us they are fiscally responsible and they have admonished this side of the House for being apparently irresponsible themselves. But in their own books, which they obviously don't open very often, sir, their debt continues to spiral out of control. They daren't stand there and tell New Zealanders that our per-person debt is $19,000, nearly $20,000 per person, and they can't stand there, sir, and tell us that that's fiscally sound. Even in the time of Muldoon's Think Big projects, the per-person debt was half of that. So these masters of fiscal management have overseen a growth in debt from next to nothing to $80 billion. They should not accuse this side of the House of distorting the truth. Someone is going to have to deal with this unsustainable debt, and it won't be that government. So business commentators have already described this budget as piecemeal and reactive. If there is a plan behind this budget, if there is foresight and meaningful consideration given to the future of this country, then the Prime Minister and his team have hidden that vision so incredibly well, sir. Commentators went on to say that this budget has nothing, will do nothing to unite the business sector. The National Party's budget, sir, nothing to unite the business sector. So, regarding the KiwiSaver, the legislation itself, the National Government has just shown us how callous they are. The logic that they use is that the $1,000 contribution is too costly an incentive. They're ignoring the tax that they took off their rich mates some time ago. They're ignoring the money that they may have saved from their welfare cuts in the 90s. So New Zealand First formally, we asked as a formal process in this House for the government to hold off. Don't pass it. Don't make it a retrospective piece of legislation. If the $1,000 contribution has no effect, which is the argument behind this bill, then why the urgency? Why not give our children a chance? Even the meanest estimate from the government in the last couple of days, at which they've tried to convince New Zealanders that they'll only be giving up, is $25,000 per person at retirement. So a more reasonable estimate, and I speak to the Minister who questioned my numbers, I did adjust for tax and I did use reasonable numbers. A more reasonable estimate is that the lost income for our retirees, sir, is between $117,000 and $145,000 per person at retirement, based solely on the $1,000 contribution alone.
That's right.
It's just unbelievable loss to our future generations. With at least 500,000, but many would argue 1 million New Zealanders still to sign up, the multiplication is basic, Mr Chair. I'll leave it for the backbench members over there to do the math themselves. But sir, New Zealand First asked this government to consider halving the Kickstart contribution to $500. The $500 seemed like a compromise. The savings, even at $1,000, are so minuscule as to be redundant. They truly are, sir. But $500 we asked for. Let's be reasonable. Don't take it away so that many of our children now are missing out because of the miserly and ill-conceived processes of this government, sir. So the debate has been far-reaching and I think quite in-depth. And we have spoken about the fairness. From one morning to one afternoon, we now have a disparity about entitlement about a child who applied in the morning of the budget day to a child who applied in the evening. It just doesn't make sense, sir. There is no warning, there is no fairness. It's simply a retrospective piece of legislation, and I think we all know, I think we've all seen that retrospective legislation it's bad, basically. It often does more harm than the good which we think it will do. I didn't speak about it myself, but I'll take this opportunity now to speak of certainty. Certainty for New Zealanders in their savings, sir. That is a key element of any successful savings fund. The members who use it, the New Zealanders who wish to use it, they must have certainty, sir. To cut away at it 8 times continuously over the years, whether you like it or not, certainty is so important for New Zealanders to have faith in a savings scheme that they can believe in, that they can use, and, sir, to supplement their retirement income into the future. This government has taken that certainty away in so many ways with this budget, this bill just being another example of that. Sir, I ask this government not to be so miserly. Let's not take it all away. Let's give New Zealanders some time. But no, sir, I don't think at any stage in this debate there was any real engagement. Certainly no one was listening, as no one seems to be listening now on that side of the House. It is a presumed outcome, sir. They are being lazy, they're not engaging, and they are using their majority numbers to simply pass through poor legislation under urgency with no engagement and no discussion with the people of New Zealand, sir. Sir, no one on that side of the House has listened to logic. No one has listened to reasonable requests based around compassion. Sir, New Zealand First cannot support this bill.
Brett